Hello to everybody, and thanks to attend our webinar on the NIRVANA system. I'm Federica Izzi, and I'm a biomedical engineer, and I've been working in the BTS company for 5 years. Today, with this webinar, I want to understand together how, with our immersive system that is NIRVANA, you can involve the patients in a motor and cognitive rehabilitation experience with a multisensorial stimulation. In particular, I will show you how to customize the rehabilitative program with focus on the lower limbs. And to start, I can say that the treatment of patients based on their cognitive and motor abilities requires always different approaches and individual rehabilitation techniques. Several studies in the scientific literature show that some key factors as a combination influence the overall success of recovery and therefore the independencies of each patient. So as you can see, these key factors are the intensity, feedback, transfer, motivation, functionality, timing, shaping, but focusing on neurological and neuromuscular patients for the successful recovery, the key factors are, among others, the feedback and the motivation and the engagement of the patients. And because it's really important to do movement tasks in a varied environment, very interactive and dynamic. Of course, these key factors have an indirect impact on the other key factors, like, for example, the intensity and the immersive system based on virtual reality can provide an innovative therapeutic solution to enhance these factors in the rehabilitation field and therefore the efficacy of the whole rehabilitation process. And in motor and cognitive neurorehabilitation, basically the key factors are the following. As regards the motor recovery, it's important that there is an active participation of the patients while performing the rehabilitative exercise, because it must be the active protagonist of his therapy. It's important that he can perform a functional training because it's important that he has a target to reach, and why not also activity linked to a daily environment. And is also a lot important the training intensity, because regular practice gives greater success, and also training more, we can enhance the performing of the patients and then the whole recovery day by day. The last, but one of the most important key factor is the motivation, because it's really important, as shown in several studies in the literature, that with the higher level of motivation and engagement of the patients, we can obtain better results in terms of recovery of the functional, motor and cognitive capabilities of the patients in less time. As a result of neurological disorders, in the presence or not of motor alteration, it's possible to observe on the neurological patients acquired disorders on cognitive function. So for a a whole recovery of the patients is also very important to train the cognitive function like the attention, the memory, the language, the executive functioning, the spatial awareness, the orientation, and the praxis abilities. And how we want to use innovative technological solution in the neuro-rehabilitation field with these final aims. The answer that we provide is the NIRVANA system, that is an immersive reality system for the neuro-rehabilitation of patients with motor and cognitive deficits due to basically the neurological disorders like, for example, stroke or brain tumors, various cerebral palsy, or neurodegenerative disease like, for example, the Parkinson. And with NIRVANA, we can treat the patients of every age, so children, adults, and elders. And it's really important that thanks to NIRVANA treatment, the patients can enjoy an immersive experience with a total freedom of movement, because the interaction with the virtual scenario is established only thanks to his movement and without the use of an avatar. And we can avoid the use of viewers, gloves, or other sensor needed to establish this interaction. And so we can assure also a high level of tolerability, also because the patients can use his own aids, like, for example, tripod or wheelchair. And in this way, it's really important to give the patients this enhanced feedback thanks to the exercises performed in a virtual scenario, developing in this way higher knowledge of his movements, result, and quality, and so obtain a knowledge of results and a knowledge of performance. The final aim is to enhance the therapeutic efficacy thanks to the motivational support and the multisensory stimulation that the system gives. So let's see how the system works. The scenarios react to patients' action and movements thanks to an emotion analysis system. So the system is connected to a projector that reproduces the virtual scenario, and this motion analysis sensor can detect the patient's movement and establish the interaction. NIRVANA can manage a double configuration. This means to use a wall or a floor projection using the same system. And this means that you can use exercises for all the body, and so for the upper limbs or for the lower limbs while performing the exercise on the wall surface or on the floor. And just an introduction, an overview of all the exercises in NIRVANA system, and then the aim of this webinar is to deep in details of some examples of exercises in the wall configuration, and so for the lower limbs rehabilitation, basically. So NIRVANA provides 6 different categories of exercises. So all the exercises that are in the database are gathered in these categories on the basis of which is the functional task, and so the target to reach, and the body segments involved. And these categories were developed in collaboration with clinicians, of course, and are the following that you can see in the image. And each exercise can be performed on wall or floor projection. And it's really important that we can provide a visual and audio feedback, and so each exercise gives this multisensor stimulation on the basis of the patient's movement. And also, one of the new features of this NIRVANA version is that each exercise can be customized and adjusted according to the level of difficulty, and this is important to do on the basis of the daily patient's residual capabilities. So I can start showing you some example of the exercises that can be performed and on the floor and are useful for the rehabilitation of lower limbs. So this is the trumpet exercise, for example. This belongs to the sprites category, and thanks to this exercise we can train the spatial cognition and orientation skills of the patient while he has to identify the position of the object to reach. And as you can see from this video, so the therapist can ask the patients, starting from the center position, to reach, for example, the trumpets on the basis of the color. And so we can work on the association object to color, and in the same time on the spatial cognition and orientation. Otherwise, another way is to execute the exercise is, for example, to walk along the circular trajectory defined by the trumpets. Of course, you can adjust the level of difficulty, and so define how much trumpets you want in the scenario. Then we can see another example in the sprites category, that is guitar exercise. So this exercise can be used for the recovery of walking ability with balance control. Because, for example, if you see this video, you can see that these patients has a prosthesis on the right arm, and I can ask the patients to walk with so a knee bending, and I want to recover the flex extension movement on the injured limbs, for example. And in the same time, I'd like to enhance the balance control on the load limb. And in this case, the aim it's to properly control your movement while walking, and doing this knee bending to not activate the sound associated with each strings. So this means that you are performing in a very selective way the exercise. Of course, if I increase the number of guitar strings, the distance will be reduced, and so also the difficulty level will increase. And the same exercise, for example, can be used with a different aim. So always walking ability recover with balance control. But, for example, you can ask the patients to walk along the path between the vertical strings, always adjusting this distance between strings, and asking him to maintain the straight trajectory. And of course, if you don't have a proper balance control, this is not obvious. And also in this case, the aim is to control your body while walking, and to not activate the sound associated with each string. And otherwise, as you can see in this video, you can ask the patients to walk or even jump on the horizontal strings, with the possibility to adjust the step or jump length. And in this case, the aim is to reach in sequence the strings, and so to activate the sound effect, and so receive the audio feedback, so the musical notes, and the visual feedback, that is the vibration effect. And always in the category of sprites, we can see another example, that is the emoticon. And also in this case, we want to recover, for example, the walking ability with balance control. And I can ask the patients to walk following the path defined by the emoticon, adjusting the step length if necessary. And here the aim is to reach in sequence this emoticon, in order to turn them into a smile and receive the audio feedback of a look. And in this kind of exercise, for example, now you see the horizontal layout, but we can define also a vertical layout, or an arc or hemi-arc distribution of this object. In this other image, you can see the count up to exercises, so scenario with the numbers. And here we want to associate the ability of spatial cognition and the orientation in the defined scenario with the reaching task of the object in sequence. In fact, in this case, it's important to reach the numbers in the correct sequence, otherwise you will get an errors and also a different audio feedback. In this case of exercise, it's not only a reaching exercise, but you can train also the logical and mathematical skills, for example, or using the same scenario but with letters of the alphabet, we can recover, for example, the language and with aphatic, for example, patients. That is a very common problem after stroke. And Going on the next category, that is the follow me category, the patient is asked to follow or be followed by an object. In this way, we want to train the residual motor skills associated with always the capability to visualize the scenario variable, and also or with the ability to orientation in this space. And here we introduce also the interaction with the other moving objects during walking. And so you can ask the patients to walk freely on the floor to get away from the dog that case you. You can also use the target objects in the corner. For example, like in this video, and say the patients, for example, so let the dog to play with the bone, or let the dog to play with the blue balls, or okay, where is the food for the dog? So come on, go forward the food, and give the patients this feedback of the dog that can follow him. And the same in the same category of the follow me, we have, for example, this exercise of panda. Here the aim is different, because the patient has to follow the random trajectory defined by the patients, and once reached, the panda moves away along a new direction to follow. And so in this way we can train the walking abilities of the patients and the spatial cognition while moving in all the space available. And now we can see another category of exercise, that is the motion category. Okay, no, sorry, there is also another example of follow me category. So as you can see in these images, I can also perform training on the walking using, for example, footprints on snow or sand scenario that appears randomly on the floor. And once stepped on, they change their color, and there is also a sound associated to each footprints, like you are walking on the snow or on the sand. Of course, there is the possibility to modify the length of this step if, for example, you use the system with the children or with adults and others. So now we can see the motion category. So as you can see in this example, we can, in this kind of exercise, we want to work on the coordination of all the body segments that are involved in this kind of exercises, while performing wide movements related to specific functional motor tasks. So as you can see in the first video on the left, for example, asking the patients to clean the dirty surface and discover which is the image, the landscape on the background. Or as in the video on the right, to clean, for example, the floor from the leaves. Also in this kind of exercise, you have realistic feedback, for example, because you can hear, for example, the noise of leaves in the forest, for example, while you perform the movement. And as you can see, you can also perform the movement using other accessories. So, for example, using balls, for example, or as you can see in this video. And now we can see a new different category, that is the hands category. In this kind of category, we want to train a lot the ocular and motor coordination, because we ask the patients to perform rapid changes in direction. So we work also on the reaction time, and because the patient is asked to reach object that appears random from different position, and so the patient doesn't know where is the object to reach. Every time he has to cover with his view all the space available. So here a high level of attention is required. We stimulate a lot the cognitive function of attention. And as you can see in these two videos, you can personalize this kind of exercise, of course, because also with the critical patients, you cannot start with the highest level of difficulty, for example, like in this video on the right, with 9 hours and a high speed of appearance of the mode. And so you can start, for example, with the easier level, that is, for example, 4 hours, and with a reduced speed, and then enhance during the treatment the level of difficulty. In same category, for example, we have also this new exercise that is the balloons. So here we train a lot the ocular and motor coordination, because each time the patient has to discover where is the balloon randomly appearing to it. And as you can see, also here it's important to customize the exercise on the basis of the patients that you are treating, because as you can see with the children on the right, okay, we can have also a higher level of difficulty, so we have a lot balloons and also with a higher speed. But if we look at the kids on the left, for example, we can see that considering that he has important motor deficit, we can start with an easy exercise, and so the system allows you to perform this customization. In the games category, for example, we have exercises that can be used to keep a high level of stimulation and interest in your patients, thanks to games, common games scenario. Like in this case, where we have the Arcanoid games, and here we work on the interaction between several patients also. And Of course, in this case, the aim is to move the control bar at the bottom with the bilateral movements of the body and hit the little ball to break the bricks, preventing it from falling on the ground. And also here we can change the difficulty level based on the width of the bar. Okay. So to sum up, we can say that why you should use a system like NIRVANA, because as you can see through this example of all the exercises that we have in the NIRVANA system, you can arouse the patient's proactivity and motivation, and you can customize the rehabilitation programs, adjusting the exercises while performing the therapy plan, and also in real time to adapt them to the patient's behavior. Then, considering that each exercise has quantitative measures, so you have the number of hit objects, the number of errors, for example, and you have always, for all the exercise, the evaluation of the execution time. These quantitative measures can then be summarized in a final report that can be also shared with the patients and used to communicate effectively with him. And there is also the possibility to plan therapies on the basis of which is the body segments involved in the movements. And so as you have seen, we can perform rehabilitation of the whole body. So exercises for the upper limbs, lower limbs, and trunk. For example, we in this webinar we haven't seen the exercise example of exercises in the grasping category, because, for example, this kind of category is very useful for the rehabilitation of the upper limbs, because you ask the patients to reach and grasp an object in a target position, and so it's recommended to perform this kind of task on a wall surface, and so using the wall projection. And for the patient's point of view, using NIRVANA, he will be the active protagonist of his rehabilitation programs, and he will experience the rehabilitative treatments with a multisensorial stimulation, thanks to the audio and visual feedback that each exercise has. And he can evaluate in real time his performance, thanks to the score that he can see in real time, and the knowledge of the quality of his movements. And in this way, he can increase his autonomy level day by day. And so if we can perform motivating and engaging therapy, this will be more effective, and we can obtain in the rehabilitative program of the patients better results in less time. So thank you for the attention. The webinar is over. See you on the next webinar.